Every 22 seconds, a life was tragically lost on this small strip of land during the Great War. This is Okinawa, a relatively small but hauntingly beautiful island tucked within the Emerald Ryukyu Island chain. Floating off the southernmost point of Japan, it looks like a paradise from the turquoise waves above. But for those of us in uniform, Okinawa is like a beautiful postcard written behind a ghost story. During the brutal Battle of Okinawa, the soil here drank the blood of thousands in a relentless slaughter. What happens when a land absorbs that much trauma over such a concentrated, terrifyingly short period of time? Since the end of World War II, this island has hosted massive U.S. military installations for several decades. Thousands of service members cycle through here, each carrying the weight of the island's dark, bloody history. Is it any wonder the men stationed here today see things they simply cannot explain to others? Among the many bases, Camp Schwab stands out as a Central Marine Corps hub with a heavy atmosphere. Located in the central region of the island, Schwab feels isolated from the modern world outside its gates. For those on the Unit Deployment Program, or UDP, the arrival at Schwab marks a somber turning point. You might find yourself working on an AAV, feeling eyes watching you from the thick, humid jungle. Down by the ramp, the salt air carries whispers of the Gyokusai, the tragic final charges of old. Tales from the grid square are filled with accounts of phantom soldiers still patrolling these very same grounds. The history is, and just in the books, it is still walking the dimly lit hallways of Camp Schwab tonight. You hear the boots on the pavement when no one else is there, echoing through the empty night. Every corner of this island feels crowded by the spirits of those who never made it back home. It is a place where the past and present collide, leaving even the toughest Marines questioning their senses. We are about to dive into the shadows that linger where the battle once raged most fiercely. To understand the hauntings, you have to understand the most famous legend on the island. Imagine standing watch at 0300 on the ramp, a massive graveyard for 7-ton trucks. On a military base, the ramp is a vast, fenced-in parking lot for heavy equipment. This place is like a steel forest where the trees are massive, silent military vehicles. The Unit Deployment Program cycles fresh troops onto the Ryukyu Islands every 6 months. Known as the UDP, this program keeps the personnel moving and the story spreading. In the dead of night, you might see a silhouette that simply shouldn't be there. What is a young child doing in a high-security vehicle lot at this hour? The tragedy began decades ago, likely during the late 1970s or the early 80s. Local legend states a young girl was accidentally killed by a heavy 7-ton truck. This horrific accident happened right here, on the very grounds of the Camp Schwab ramp. Since that day, her spirit reportedly wanders between the rows of cold, iron machinery. Guards describe a small figure darting between the massive wheels of an amphibious assault vehicle. The air grows heavy and cold when you approach the spot where she was lost. How do you even begin to report a ghostly encounter to your commanding officer? Many young Marines find themselves frozen in fear while patrolling this isolated stretch of asphalt. They are far from home, facing a history that refuses to stay buried in the past. The island carries the weight of the Gyokusai, but this girl's story is intensely personal. It is a chilling chapter in the long, dark history of the Battle of Okinawa. These accounts often find their way into the archives of tales from the grid square. She represents a different kind of casualty, one born from a simple, tragic mistake. New arrivals to Camp Schwab often hear whispers about the girl before their first watch. They learn to watch the shadows beneath the bumpers of the park's 7-ton trucks. Every 22 seconds a life was lost here once, but this haunting is different. As the UDP cycles continue, the story of the girl on the ramp only grows. And she isn't just a legend, there are people still serving today who have seen her. Before we explore the hospital sightings, you need to feel what it's like to live here. Life on Okinawa is a constant cycle of brutal humidity and a feeling of being watched. This small strip of the Ryukyu Islands holds a beauty often masked by its darkness. Have you ever lived somewhere where the air feels heavy with more than just moisture? The humidity here is like a wet wool blanket that never quite seems to dry. It clings to your skin and gear, making every movement feel slow and incredibly deliberate. Beyond the heat, the seasonal temperatures bring a unique set of challenges to the base. Massive bugs emerge from the jungle, reminding you that you are just a visitor here. When the typhoons roll in, the entire island braces for the destructive power of the Pacific. These storms mirror the violent history that once soaked this soil during the Battle of Okinawa. Tens of thousands of active-duty American service members call these installations their temporary home. Many arrive through the unit deployment program, cycling through Camp Schwab for months at a time. You will often see AAVs churning through the surf near spots where history still lingers. For these Marines, the island is a place of intense training and constant environmental struggle. Why do some service members love this assignment while others cannot wait to leave? The sentiment is deeply divided among those who walk these haunted grounds every single day. Some find peace in the turquoise waters, while others only feel the weight of the Gyokusai. Stories from Tales from the Grid Square capture this eerie duality of beauty and dread. That oppressive energy remains today, thick as the jungle air and just as difficult to escape. Every corner of this island feels like it is hiding something from the living world. Even the toughest Marines eventually look for a way out, into a new career or off-island. They seek a reprieve from the ghosts and the grueling reality of life in the Ryukyu chain. Deep in the central region of Okinawa lies Camp Schwab, a place where the jungle never stops watching. This isolated Marine Corps base feels worlds away from the bustling cities further south on the island. Surrounded by dense vegetation, the base sits precariously between the jagged coastline and the untamed Ryukyu wild. Service members on the unit deployment program often find themselves staring into that emerald wall of trees. The jungle here isn't just plants, it is a living witness to the bloody history of Okinawa. During the Battle of Okinawa, these very hills were sites of desperate struggles and tragic final stands. Tales from the Grid Square are filled with reports from those who felt ice following their movements. One specific night in 2016 remains etched into the memories of a group of stationed Marines here. They weren't just hearing things in the brush. They were watching something that defied all logical explanation. A young girl appeared near the perimeter, her presence jarring against the harsh military backdrop of the base. The Marines watched in silence as she moved with an eerie, rhythmic grace toward the heavy chain-link fence. Without slowing down, the mysterious figure walked straight through the metal wire as if it weren't even there. She vanished into the thick jungle canopy, leaving the stunned witnesses to question their own eyes and sanity. At Camp Schwab, the line between our reality and the spirit world seems as thin as the mist. The local legends of Gyokusai suggest that many souls never truly left these rugged, central Okinawan hills. Whether guarding an AAV or patrolling the perimeter, you learn quickly that you are never truly alone. The humid air carries the weight of thousands who perished during the island's darkest days of the war. Every rustle in the leaves could be the wind, or it could be a ghost seeking peace. As the jungle encroaches on the concrete, the past seems to be reclaiming the land piece by piece. This atmosphere of isolation makes the strange sightings at Camp Schwab feel like an inevitable part of life. I remember leaving the island and realizing that Marine buzz and always translate to manager out there. Transitioning away from the Ryukyu Islands felt like navigating a deep jungle without a reliable compass. How do you take the discipline of the barracks and turn it into a successful career? What exactly happens to your identity when that heavy military uniform finally comes off for good? After finishing my UDP at Camp Schwab, I spent several years working in sales and marketing roles. It was a world away from the AAVs and the intense training on the firing ranges. Yet, I still felt like I was searching for my true calling in the civilian world. One day, an unexpected encounter at the local DMV changed the entire course of my life. A complete stranger suggested that my voice might be perfect for professional voiceover and narration work. That single comment sparked a transformation I never could have predicted during my service years. Sharing tales from the grid square about the Battle of Okinawa helped me realize our shared power. I began to see how the intensity of military life could fuel a brand new passion. Moving from the rigid structure of the corps into the creative world was a massive leap. Many veterans struggle to find their footing while attempting to bridge this daunting professional gap. Even the weight of history and the spirit of Gyokusai can inform our civilian resilience. If you are looking for that same edge in your own career transition, listen closely. You don't have to face the civilian jungle alone without the right tools and guidance. My journey from the ramp to the recording booth taught me that every veteran has potential. Finding your voice after the service is about more than just getting a new job. This professional development opportunity is the bridge you have been waiting to cross for years. That's where SNHU comes in to help you navigate the tricky waters of civilian life. Why spend your G-bill on a school that doesn't respect your budget or your schedule? Who has time for a traditional campus while balancing a busy life after military service? Think of Southern New Hampshire University as the reliable gear you need for this new mission. Did you know that SNHU is a fully accredited nonprofit institution dedicated to student success? Being a nonprofit means they put their resources back into you instead of distant shareholders. Their online tuition rates remain among the lowest in the nation to keep your education affordable. When I transitioned from the island, I needed a path that wouldn't drain my bank account. SNHU offers specialized online degree programs designed to fit into your unpredictable daily schedule. You can even dive into their high-demand cybersecurity program to protect the digital frontier. Whether you are maintaining an AAV or patrolling the Ryukyu Islands, these skills actually translate. Transitioning from a Marine to a civilian career requires the right tools and a solid plan. Cybersecurity is a rapidly growing field where your military discipline provides a massive tactical advantage. Because they are a nonprofit, their primary focus is helping you reach that graduation finish line. You can study from anywhere, whether you are back home or still stationed at Camp Schwab. Lower tuition means you can save your G-bill for other certifications or graduate-level studies later. Their cybersecurity curriculum stays current with the latest threats facing our global digital infrastructure today. Even if you are on a UDP rotation, your coursework travels wherever the mission takes you. Don't let your hard-earned benefits go to waste on a program that doesn't suit your needs. SNHU provides the credibility of an accredited degree with the flexibility of a modern online classroom. It is time to take control of your future with a university that understands the veteran experience. Check out their programs today and start building the bridge to your next professional chapter. Before we return to the ghosts, remember that your future is just as important as the past. The jungle is calling us back to the tales from the grid square and the haunting ramp. Now, let's get back to the things that happened in the dark at Camp Schwab. Back at the Schwab ramp, things took a documented turn for the weird in 2014. In 2014, it wasn't just a legend, it was an official report on a staff sergeant's duty log. For Marines on the unit deployment program, the night shifts often become exercises in absolute terror. On one particular night, a seasoned staff sergeant sat alone while on battalion staff duty. As he scanned the area near the ramp, he saw something that completely stopped his heart. A small, solitary girl was standing where no child should ever be at that late hour. He didn't just imagine it, he felt compelled to document this anomaly in the official log. The report described a silent figure watching the heavy equipment from the edge of the jungle. These accounts from the Ryukyu Islands aren't just stories, they are recorded in permanent ink. To understand why a child haunts this area, you must look at the buildings standing nearby. The current command HQ at Camp Schwab hides a sterile and tragic past within its walls. Long before it housed commanders, this very structure served as the bustling base hospital. During the Battle of Okinawa, hospitals like these were filled with the echoes of the suffering. The tragic legacy of the hospital likely acts as a beacon for these restless young spirits. Fast forward to 2016. when the mysterious girl made another chilling appearance near the ramp. This time, it wasn't just one lone witness. A whole group of Marines watched her. They observed her small frame moving with purpose toward the high-security perimeter fence. How do you explain a young girl walking through a high-security fence like it was mist? The Marines watched in stunned silence as she passed right through the heavy chain-link barrier. These accounts from tales from the grid square prove that some things truly defy military logic. The girl vanished specifically near the old hospital site, reinforcing her connection to the past. Like smoke in a sudden typhoon, she was gone before anyone could process what happened. Marines often wonder if she is a relic of the Gyokusai, lost forever in time. Her quiet presence serves as a haunting reminder of the lives lost on this bloody ground. Each sighting adds a new chapter to the dark history of the Schwab ramp and jungle. She didn't run. She walked right through the fence and into the thick jungle. And that is not even the creepiest part of the entire base layout. To understand the strange layout, you have to look closely at the Camp Schwab Command HQ. This central hub for operations holds a history that many Marines passing through never truly realize. On the surface, it looks like any other military building nestled within the rugged Ryukyu Islands. But the walls of this headquarters once served a much more somber and clinical purpose. Long before it was the brain of the base, this specific building functioned as the primary hospital. Imagine the countless souls who passed through these doors during the height of the island's conflicts. Operations for the unit deployment program, now managed, where surgical tables once sat in silence. The sterile smell of iodine has been replaced by the routine business of military life and paperwork. Yet, the echoes of the old hospital remain woven into the very foundation of the structure. These chilling details are frequently shared by those contributing to the project, Tales from the Grid Square. When you consider the trauma once housed here, the sighting of a wandering girl feels strangely logical. Hospitals are places of both beginning and end, often trapping the spirits of those who left too soon. Marines on guard duty often report a coldness that has nothing to do with the tropical air. They describe a heavy silence that settles over the HQ once the sun dips below the horizon. Even the rumble of a nearby AV cannot drown out the whispers echoing through the old wards. The transformation from a house of healing to a command center has erased the building's original DNA. Every corner of the headquarters seems to remember the pain and desperation of its hospital years. Knowing this history makes the ghostly encounters feel less like legends and more like haunting memories. It explains why a child would be searching for someone in a place now filled with soldiers. This medical legacy connects the base HQ directly to the tragic events surrounding the Battle of Okinawa. When Marines leave the hauntings of Okinawa for mainland training, they think they're finally escaping. But the shadows from the Battle of Okinawa are only the beginning of their journey north. Most units on their UDP rotation eventually find themselves packing gear for a trip to mainland Japan. Their destination is Camp Fuji, a Marine Corps base sitting right at the foot of Mount Fuji. The scenery is breathtaking, but a dark reputation lurks just beyond the base's training area boundaries. Just outside the wire lies a place known as Aokigahara, a name that translates to Sea of Trees. This massive forest spans the base of the mountain, a dense emerald canopy hiding a tragic history. For many, this forest is the most notorious location in all of Japan for its unsettling atmosphere. It gained worldwide notoriety after a high-profile controversy involving internet personality Logan Paul and his camera crew. While civilians see the forest as a dark mystery, Marines view it as their tactical backyard during exercises. During field ops, units frequently find themselves operating on the very edge of this infamous woodland labyrinth. The dense vegetation is so thick that it reportedly messes with compasses and traditional navigation equipment. Is it possible the dark energy from the Sea of Trees clings to the units passing through? Many believe the heavy spiritual weight of Okinawa follows these Marines directly into the shadow of Fuji. The transition from the island's hospital hauntings to the forest's deep silence is a jarring experience. Tales from the Grid Square are filled with accounts of strange sightings near the tree line. Marines in AAVS and infantry squads report feeling watched by something ancient within the thick timber. The Ryukyu Islands have their ghosts, but the Sea of Trees offers a different kind of terror. Why does training always seem to happen at the base of this beautiful yet cursed mountain? Perhaps the spirits of those lost in the Battle of Okinawa recognize the morning of Aokigahara. The hauntings simply follow the rotations, stretching from the sunny island shores to the mainland's peaks. As the sun sets behind the volcano, the line between training and a nightmare begins to blur. Marines quickly learn that the Sea of Trees is to Japan what the Bermuda Triangle is to the ocean. They arrive looking for a break from Schwab, only to find themselves surrounded by even deeper mysteries. But while the forest is a place of external terror, what happens back in the barracks is personal. Back in the Okinawa barracks, typical 3-story concrete blocks, a new, chilling story began to emerge. In 2015, Ryan and John learned their Schwab barracks had a third roommate they never signed up for. Have you ever seen something in your peripheral vision that you knew wasn't just a simple shadow? Marine Corps' barracks in the Ryukyu Islands are usually repetitive, 3-story concrete structures built for durability. Each floor features a long, central hallway where every door looks exactly like the one before it. This architectural sameness makes the hallways feel like inescapable concrete wind tunnels for the unexplained. When you live in these blocks, the silence of the night can become heavy and almost suffocating. Ryan A., whose last name correlates with a common currency, shared a room during his unit deployment program. While stationed at Camp Schwab, he and his roommate John started noticing things that didn't belong. It began with small movements, like the corner of a blanket shifting when no one was near. They were tough Marines, used to the daily grind of AAV training, but this felt entirely different. Then came the sightings of a young girl wearing ragged, dirty clothes standing near their wall. Why does she always appear in ragged clothes, looking like a relic from the Battle of Okinawa? Her presence felt like a direct callback to the ghostly girl seen at the infamous Schwab ramp. Tales from the Grid Square are filled with these accounts, yet seeing it yourself changes everything. She didn't look like a modern resident. She looked like someone trapped in the island's violent past. Her clothes were torn and dusty, as if she had just crawled out of a hidden cave. The concrete walls of the barracks seemed to soak up the sadness of her silent, lingering gaze. Ryan and John would often wake up to find her standing perfectly still in the dark. Every time they tried to approach her, she would vanish back into the shadows of the room. The layout of the 3-story building made every floor feel like a carbon copy of the haunting. It makes you wonder if every room in the block holds its own silent, ragged witness. Imagine waking up at 3 a.m. to see a pair of hollow eyes watching you from the corner. You try to blink the image away, but the girl in the ragged dress remains perfectly still. The air in the room turns ice cold as the reality of the situation sinks into your bones. This wasn't just a fleeting hallucination. It was a repeated encounter that defied any logical explanation. Even long after the tragedy of Gyokusai, the spirits here seemed to find a way to remain. And this girl in ragged clothes, she wasn't just standing there, she was messing with the room. This wasn't just a trick of the light. The activity in the Schwab barracks became terrifyingly physical. You can't blame these occurrences on a draft or the island's relentless, heavy humidity during the summer. Marines stationed at Camp Schwab began reporting strange, metallic sounds echoing through their concrete living quarters. How does a spectral figure move a heavy metal vent cover without anyone noticing a thing? To remove these specific vent covers, you actually have to push up and twist them quite hard. It is a deliberate, mechanical motion, almost like solving a stubborn puzzle in the pitch dark. If it isn't the wind and it isn't a prank, then what is actually moving them? These heavy vents don't just fall off the wall due to gravity or simple building vibrations. I remember looking at those covers, knowing they required real strength and coordination to manipulate correctly. Yet, Marines would wake up to find them sitting perfectly on the floor across the room. The sheer physical force needed to dislodge them contradicts every logical explanation we tried to find. The ragged girl seen wandering the halls seemed to be more than just a passing shadow. She was interacting with the environment, leaving behind a trail of manipulated objects and cold air. On the Ryukyu Islands, the line between the living and the dead often feels incredibly thin. During a UDP rotation, you expect challenges, but not from the architecture of your own room. These accounts, documented in Tales from the Grid Square, highlight the bizarre reality of Camp Schwab. That specific push-up and twist motion haunts the minds of those who saw the covers moved. Perhaps the restless spirits from the Battle of Okinawa still trying to find a way out. The sound of metal scraping against metal in the dead of night is a sound you never forget. Every morning, the duty NCO would find another grate displaced, with no signs of forced entry. It wasn't just one room, the phenomenon spread across several floors of the concrete barracks. Some Marines claimed they heard the rhythmic clicking of the locks turning in the middle of the night. The precision of the movement suggested an intelligent, albeit invisible, hand at work behind the scenes. We even checked the AAV bays nearby, thinking vibrations might be the cause, but the math didn't work. But when the physical activity finally stops, a far more chilling psychological terror begins to take hold. You often hear skeptics blame these strange occurrences on the natural settling of old military foundations. But on Camp Schwab, the physical evidence tells a much more deliberate and chilling story. These concrete barracks have stood since the early days, housing countless Marines through their UDP cycles. When things go bump in the night, people want a logical explanation like shifting walls. However, the mechanical design of the vent covers in these rooms completely defies that simple logic. You have to understand that these covers aren't just sitting loosely inside their metal frames. To remove one, you must physically push the heavy metal plate upward with significant force. It requires a specific, intentional twist motion to clear the locking tabs and pull it down. A building settling might cause a creak, but it cannot perform a complex two-step maneuver. Even the heavy vibrations from a passing AAV wouldn't be enough to unseat these locked covers. Yet, Marines frequently find these vents lying silently on the floor in the middle of the night. There are no tools left behind, no signs of forced entry, and definitely no logical reason. This isn't a case of gravity winning a battle against a loose screw or a rusted hinge. It is a calculated, physical action that requires hands or something else to actually execute it. Tales from the Grid Square are filled with these accounts of physical manipulation beyond our understanding. We are talking about a deliberate interaction with the environment that bypasses every law of physics. If a person didn't climb up there to do it, the alternative is much harder to stomach. In the Ryukyu Islands, the line between the physical world and the spirit realm feels thin. These incidents prove that the energy left behind from the Battle of Okinawa is still active. The Gyokusai spirit of the past seems to manifest in these small, terrifyingly physical demonstrations. Every time a vent cover hits the floor near the ramp, it reminds us we're not alone. It challenges the comfort of our skepticism and forces us to face the impossible head-on. When you realize the building is just settling, the real fear finally begins to set in. The most terrifying accounts don't involve moving vents, they involve moving shadows that walk among us. When the sun dips below the horizon at Camp Schwab, the air takes on a heavy, suffocating weight. It is during these dark hours that the barracks shift from places of rest to theaters of horror. In April, near the 4th Marines Barracks, the stillness of the night was shattered by a chilling report. Between the hours of 0200 and 0300, a Marine witnessed something that defied every law of physics. A massive shadow entity manifested within the concrete walls, moving with a silent, unnatural grace through the hallways. This wasn't a trick of the moonlight or a tired mind playing games in the deep Okinawan night. The encounter left seasoned veterans questioning the reality of the ground they stood upon at the Ryukyu Islands. But as the clock ticks toward dawn, the nature of these encounters becomes even more personal and invasive. Imagine waking up at 0600, your body pinned down by an invisible force you cannot hope to fight. This was the terrifying reality for a Marine assigned to the 3rd L Unit during his rotation at Schwab. Sleep paralysis is like being a prisoner in your own skin while a cold stranger watches from the corner. As the morning light began to creep in, he found himself unable to scream or even draw breath. His roommate watched in horror from across the room as the Marine's eyes rolled back in his head. What followed was a sound that would haunt that barracks room far longer than any ghostly footstep. The paralyzed Marine began to speak, his voice dropping into a guttural, ancient tone he had never used. The roommate reported that the words flowing from his mouth were unmistakably fluent, rhythmic, and terrifying Latin. This young Marine had never studied the language, yet he spoke it with the precision of a scholar. You have to wonder who, or what, was actually speaking through him during those desperate, frozen moments. Why do these shadow entities choose these specific morning hours to assert their dominance over the living? Perhaps the Battle of Okinawa left behind more than just memories and rusted steel in the jungle soil. Every morning between 0 to 00 and 0700, the veil at Camp Schwab seems to thin to the breaking point. Where does a Marine at Camp Schwab learn to speak Latin in his sleep during a routine deployment? To find the answer, we have to look at the dark history buried directly beneath the base foundations. The shadow entities and Latin whispers start making sense when you face the bloodbath of Okinawa. In just 11 weeks, 250,000 people were tragically wiped off the map. This staggering loss means that nearly 4,000 lives were extinguished every single day of battle. To be precise, the daily average death toll reached 3,896 souls. How can any land ever truly recover from that much concentrated loss and lingering sorrow? This 11-week hurricane of steel transformed the beautiful Ryukyu Islands into a literal graveyard of history. Approximately 50,000 Americans became casualties during this brutal struggle for control over the island. On the opposing side, approximately 100,000 Japanese soldiers died defending these rocky shores. But the most heartbreaking statistic involves the civilians, with nearly 150,000 killed. Are we seeing ghosts at Camp Schwab? Or are we witnessing the permanent scars of history? Beneath the modern foundations of the barracks lies a legacy of violence that refuses to stay buried. The air around the ramp feels heavy with the weight of those who never found peace. Marines arriving for their unit deployment program often sense an ancient tension held within the soil. These aren't just stories from the grid square, they are echoes of a literal apocalypse. Even the rumbling of an AAV cannot drown out the silent screams of a landscape in mourning. 11 weeks of non-stop combat turned the paradise of the Ryukyu Islands into a nightmare of death. 100,000 Japanese soldiers perished, their lives ending in the dark caves and deep jungles. 50,000 American families received the news that their loved ones would never return from these islands. The civilian population suffered the most, losing nearly 150,000 souls to the conflict. Every corner of this island holds a story of a life cut short in its prime. The ground itself seems to remember the blood spilled during those 11 weeks of absolute chaos. This violent foundation provides the historical basis for every chilling encounter reported at Camp Schwab today. When thousands die daily, the energy left behind creates a haunting that time cannot easily erase. But the tragedy deepens when you realize it wasn't just soldiers caught in the crossfire. Civilians were driven by a terrifying philosophy known as Gyokusai, leading to even darker outcomes. The philosophy of Gyokusai turned the Ryukyu Islands into a meat grinder of unprecedented and terrifying historical proportions. To understand why Camp Schwab feels so heavy, you must look at the cold and very hard numbers. This wasn't a years-long siege. The entire Battle of Okinawa lasted just 11 agonizing and blood-soaked weeks. Within that short window, the scale of human loss defies everything we know about modern industrial warfare. Approximately 50,000 American casualties were recorded as they fought through the mud and the jagged volcanic coral. Think about that number for a moment while you walk the quiet paths of the modern military base. On the other side of the line, approximately 100,000 Japanese soldiers met their violent, final ends. But even those massive military losses only tell a small fraction of the island's tragic and haunted story. The true horror lies with the civilians, as nearly 150,000 innocent lives simply vanished. Entire families were caught between two warring giants, with absolutely no place left for them to safely hide. When you tally those souls, the sheer density of death in such a small space becomes physically suffocating. Statistics show the daily average death toll reached a staggering 3,896 people. That is almost 4,000 lives extinguished every single day for nearly 3 months straight, without any rest. These deaths didn't happen far away. They happened right where Marines now park their heavy AAVs today. Every square inch of the Ryukyu Islands soaked up the blood of someone's father, brother, or beloved child. Tales from the grid square are filled with reports of restless spirits lingering in these specific combat zones. Marines on the unit deployment program often feel a strange, cold pressure while walking the dark Schwab perimeter. It explains why places like the ramp feel less like military infrastructure and more like open, weeping wounds. The math of the massacre creates a spiritual frequency that some people are simply tuned to hear clearly. 300,000 people lost in 11 weeks leaves a permanent scar on the very fabric of reality. How could an island ever recover from hosting such a concentrated explosion of human suffering and deep grief? This isn't just history. It is the atmospheric weight you feel every time the sun sets over Schwab. To understand why the civilians were jumping off cliffs, you first have to understand the concept of Gyokusai. Long before the war, the Ryukyu Islands were a distinct nation with a rich and unique cultural heritage. That independence vanished in the 1870s when Japan officially annexed the islands into its rapidly expanding empire. With this annexation came a systematic erasure of the native identity the local people once proudly held. Today, the original Okinawan tongue is classified as a severely endangered language by global cultural historians. Imagine a world where your very words are stripped away to make room for forced imperial loyalty. This cultural shift set the stage for a psychological transformation that would eventually lead to mass tragedy. Imperial subject education began teaching children that dying for the emperor was the ultimate and sacred honor. Students were told that their lives were merely small components of a much grander and divine national spirit. This dark philosophy eventually crystallized into a single, terrifying concept known to the world as Gyokusai. Translated literally, Gyokusai means shattering a jewel, a poetic name for an absolutely horrific act of sacrifice. Imagine being told that shattering like a jewel was more honorable than surviving the trials of war. It was a cult of honor that demanded the ultimate price from everyone, including the innocent children. As American forces closed in during the Battle of Okinawa, this ideology faced its most brutal test. Japanese soldiers began providing civilians with hand grenades for the express purpose of combat and suicide. One grenade was intended for the enemy, while the second was reserved for the civilian's own life. How do you convince a desperate parent that their child's life is just a jewel to be shattered? Driven by fear and indoctrination, many families fled to the jagged coral cliffs overlooking the crashing waves. In a heartbreaking display of Gyokusai, Okinawan parents began throwing themselves and their children off the heights. They chose the rocky abyss below over the perceived shame of capture by the advancing American military. These cliffs, once places of natural beauty, became the sites of mass civilian suicides and unthinkable pain. The trauma of these shattered jewels left a scar on the land that time has failed to heal. This isn't just a grim history lesson, it is the source of the heavy energy felt today. The island is beautiful today, but it remains built on a foundation of millions of shattered jewels. When the wind howls through the Schwab Barracks, it carries the echoes of a stolen cultural identity. After hearing about the island's blood-soaked history, even the toughest Marine starts seeing shadows everywhere. I was a young recon Marine assigned to the 31st MU, feeling the weight of Okinawa. Sometimes, the things that go bump in the night aren't ghosts, they're just our own jumpy nerves. We were out on a training mission at Camp Hansen, tucked away in the thick, humid darkness. After everything I had heard about the island, my senses were dialed up to a dangerous level. Can you blame us for being paranoid after seeing those concrete barracks and hearing the whispers? Our task was simple enough: set up a sloping V antenna to establish our long-range communications. A sloping V is basically just two long copper wires attached together at a central point. In the middle of the night, those thin wires look exactly like a deadly jungle tripwire. Have you ever been so spooked that a piece of wire looked like a supernatural threat? I remember creeping through the brush, my heart hammering against my ribs with every single step. The silence of Camp Hansen felt heavy, as if the very air was watching our every move. Every snap of a twig sounded like a ghost from the Battle of Okinawa coming for us. We were moving fast, trying to finish the setup before the humidity completely drained our remaining energy. Suddenly, a loud, piercing alarm shattered the midnight silence and sent us all diving for cover. Blue and red lights began flashing in the distance, cutting through the dense canopy of the jungle. We thought we had tripped something ancient, but it was just the PMO responding to a fire. In our frantic haste, the copper wire had snagged a sensor and triggered a massive bass response. The PMO, or base police, came screaming toward our position with their sirens wailing through the night. There we were, elite recon Marines, nearly jumping out of our boots over a simple communication wire. I almost called for backup against a piece of copper because the island had me so rattled. It is funny how the mind plays tricks when you are standing on ground soaked in tragedy. Whether it is a ghost or just a copper wire, the energy of Okinawa stays with you. That night at Camp Hansen taught me that fear is the most powerful ghost on this island. Whether it's ghosts at Schwab or antennas at Hansen, these stories now belong to all of us. The smoke pit is more than a place for stories. It is where we process the unexplainable. Every whisper heard in the Ryukyu Islands carries a weight that only those who serve truly understand. The shadows of the past continue to walk the halls of every concrete barracks on the island. Did you ever stand watch on the Schwab ramp and feel the cold breath of the unseen? Perhaps you saw the ragged girl or heard the mechanical grinding of vents in the dead night. We draw these accounts from the shared experiences found within the archives of Tales from the Grid Square. The legacy of the Battle of Okinawa and the tragedy of Gyokusai still haunt these grounds today. Marines on the UDP cycle through these islands, but they often leave with more than just memories. These legends are woven into the very fabric of the Pacific, connecting generations of those who served. Our digital smoke pit is always open for those who have seen shadows moving in the night. Your engagement helps us shine a light on the mysteries that the official records usually leave behind. Tell us your own Okinawan ghost story in the comments so we can keep these legends alive. Did you encounter something strange while training in the dense jungles or near the ancient tomb sites? Every comment adds a new layer to our understanding of what truly happens after the sun sets. Thank you for joining me in exploring the dark corners of the Pacific and supporting this community. From the AAV ramps to the jungle gates of Schwab, your stories are the heart of everything. We remember the fallen and respect the spirits that still guard the jagged cliffs of the south. Some secrets are meant to be shared, while others remain buried in the blood-soaked soil of Ryukyu. Keep your eyes on the shadows and your ears open for the whispers of the ancient dead. Your support allows us to continue documenting the hauntings that define the military experience across the globe. Join us next time as we venture back into the grid square to find what lurks there. Until the shadows lengthen again, I will see you at the next smoke pit for more tales.